talking to you about listening and about finding the honey. There's no slides with my talk, it's just me. We're going to be listening to some sounds together because it will also be involving you and your considerable imaginations. And I will be asking you a little bit later on to just help me out with doing a couple of things, so I hope that's okay. This talk is a kind of promiscuous TED talk in that I'm going to be sleeping around with a lot of ideas, and I'm not just going to be wedded to one. We've heard some music there, and I wonder what stories you were conjuring in your head, what images were coming up, what connections you were making. The last bit of music, when I was bringing on the suitcase, that kind of creepy music, I was listening to on my headphones just a wee while back as I was walking along, and there was a man coming out of a bed and breakfast, as you do, carrying a big suitcase, as you do, which was really heavy. Why not? But with that music on, it wasn't so much what was in the suitcase, but who was in the suitcase. This is the title of the talk, but I wonder what the unreal soundtrack to your life is. And rather than think of your whole life, let's just think of when you got up this morning and you got ready to come here today. So imagine if that was a film, what would be the music that would go with that? Was it one of these, perhaps?
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
Or maybe... maybe that's not the real soundtrack to your lives. Let's investigate further. But just before we do, I want to come right now to my final conclusions, because I'm very likely to run out of time. So, to sum up then, open your ears. Be curious about your sonic environment. Be alive to the possibilities. Work that imagination and be playful. About 10 years ago, a young man was cycling along. A young man probably around about the same age as many of you young people here today. And he wasn't wearing one of these. And sadly, he crashed. I met him a couple of months later at a neurological reablement unit. That's kind of like a hospital where you go when you've had a head injury. I work a half a day a week as part of the therapy team doing music. He's always loved music, and we were chatting one day, and I said, oh, hey, why not become a DJ on the local radio station? He'd never done anything like that before. He thought it was a good idea, and they thought it was a good idea as well. They went for that. And so, now, and he has done for the last couple of years, he has a 2-hour program on this radio station. But it's once every 2 months, because it takes him a little while to put it together. He does all the talk, the interviews and the intros and the outros for the music, which he chooses himself. I help him with editing the show and putting it all together. I'm going to play you just a little extract, and also he tells you a little bit about himself.
Gee, that's one hell of a kicking beat. I played you that, little beauty. Why last year? Hell yeah, you bunch of badass mother Howards. I have been silent for over 10 years and now the whole world can hear me. I fell off a bicycle without a helmet on and fractured my skull when I was younger. I have got a condition known as locked-in syndrome. I am paralyzed and can't speak, but I can still move my eyes. I'm talking to you with the aid of a very clever computer, controlled by my eyes. You are in tune to the iLife show. My life is iLife. A big shout going out to all the folks who have helped me over the years, not just the medical peeps, everyone who's taken their own personal time to help me. Heck, I wouldn't be half as proud.
That voice is generated by the computer because he can no longer talk. But it's now his voice, and it's his show. And, as he said, it's listened to by the whole world, not just the UK and people on the radio there, but from his website and from the radio station's website you can stream it or you can download it. So from Canada, across Europe, across the Middle East, actually in Afghanistan, and down to Australia, he's got listeners. He's an inspirational man, and I'm proud to call him one of my friends. From him I've learned about being present, being here and now, and about being open to the possibilities. And also about finding the honey when particularly times are bleak. Music has expanded now to include other sounds, non-musical sounds, ambient sounds, the sounds that are all around us. That music and sound in general is a really powerful experience. We know that. It can help entertain us, but also sustain us, energize us, challenge us, enrage us and annoy us. It can move us both emotionally and physically. And we can learn about ourselves from the sound and the music that's all around. But how often do we just ignore it, or even are not aware of the sonic environment that we live in? How often that richness and diversity is something that we just don't reach out and grasp for? If only we were curious enough to open up the possibilities for the stories that those sounds could tell. I'm going to play you 3 sounds that I recorded now, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about each one. This is the lobby of a large building. People talking. The beeping of the lift, I particularly enjoyed the beeping of the lift, lots of lifts going up. I can't remember when I recorded this, but I know it was before 2001 because it's one of the towers from the World Trade Center in New York. What about this sound? What do you think this might be? It's kind of one of those things, but not quite. It's a huge tree. Underneath it, it had snowed and the ground had frozen. And then it had rained and icicles had formed. And then the sun had come out and the icicles are dropping onto the frozen ground. But what about this one? Ah! Yeah, no.
Woodpeckers down the path.
Could be, but no. This is a bit more distasteful. This is a sheep's carcass with the ribs exposed on Dartmoor and Devon, and it was me playing it like an African thumb player. Folks, what is your favourite sound? What could be your favourite sound? Sound of the sea, maybe bird song, or maybe you could dig deeper, something more idiosyncratic, more obscure. Maybe it's something unnatural. I've asked this question in workshops that I run of many different people. I've asked it of people that are deaf or blind, asylum seekers and refugees, patients in psychiatric hospitals, prisoners in prisons from 5 years old to 95 years old. So take a moment. What is your favourite sound? And I'd like you to share it with one other person next to you. Just whisper what it is, preferably a person that you don't know. Could you do that quickly now, please? Kind of musical composition. Absolutely fantastic. Actually, a little while ago, I went and heard a performance of John Cage's 4 minutes 33 seconds, the so-called silent piece, where the instructions for the musicians are tacit, which means don't play. When I saw it, it was in the Royal Albert Hall with a full orchestra and a conductor, and for that time then, the orchestra was just still and quiet, and the audience were mostly. It created a context to open up our ears. And the more we focused on the absence of musical sound, the void, the more we noticed the sounds that were in it. I want to play you my last recording now. Whose life is this the soundtrack to? This is recorded in the Amazonian rainforest. It's the Wayapi people, and this piece is called Dance of the Fish. It's played on bamboo clarinet-like instruments that can only play one note. This is an ensemble of them. This piece is reputedly one of the most difficult in their repertoire to play. And they were very pleased with the rendition for this recording. Now that's the real soundtrack to their life. But also, actually, it is the real soundtrack to our lives too. We've heard a lot today about contexts, bigger picture, where you draw the line. If this is about learning or listening without boundaries, it's about pushing it further and encompassing people like us on the other side of the planet. And of course that's available to us now because we can listen in anywhere via the internet or recordings. We can hear things across the planet, people, events, natural occurrences, the weather, plants, animals, insects. We can even hear things we can't see. The inside of atoms to black holes out in space. That's a vast universe of sound out there, available to us if only we were curious enough to reach out. For this last minute, I want to bring it right back to here and now, and just focus on you and your ears and your mouths. I want us to create a relaxing sound bath together. Don't need to take off your clothes, just put on your ears and listen to one another. In a minute, I'm just going to ask you to hum. And it might be 120 different notes, that doesn't matter. So you start your hum, and then I'm going to signal you to open your mouth. And the sound will still come out. And then I'll go back to that, go back to the hum. If you run out of breath, for goodness sake, take another breath. And then carry on. Are you ready? Are you up for this?
Yes.
Whoa! Okay. Here we go. I think it was worth at least one applause. I'm finishing now, but I haven't mentioned about the honey.
Tell us about the honey.
These words were written by Fariduddin Attar, a Persian Sufi poet from 800 years ago. A man falling into a well just manages to hang on to a dead branch of a tree growing around it. The branch nearly splits. A fatal fall is imminent. He then notices with fright that a dragon at the bottom of the well is trying to get hold of his legs. Mastering his fear, he sees, close to him, a beehive full of honey. While holding on with one hand, he reaches out and takes a little of the honey, tastes it and says, "Life, what a joy." Thanks for listening.